So Jeffrey, we're dieting, right? Or at least I am.
You're
Um,
prepping, right?
yeah. Well, I'm pre-prepping, prep-positioning. All right. But I'm dieting. I mean, this is the first time I've dieted in 4 years. Um, I know you're dieting. How's training going for you?
My training's actually going really good, really good. So I think I have a good handle on the good balance there as far as, the way I have my training split set up. I'm
Mm-hmm.
training every other day. So that way, every time I'm in the gym, I'm ready to get after it. I'm not, let's say, soft, because a lot of people out there, like to say sometimes I'm a little soft. Well, no, when I'm in the gym, I'm still
The
getting after it.
Godfather? Really?
It's
The
true.
Godfather's not soft.
I don't know, man. People say I'm soft. I don't know why they say that. I don't know. It's just because I'm conservative in nature. I do take those rest days.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'm taking, 4, 5, 6 minute rests in between sets sometimes to make sure I'm having good set to set performance. So I think, sometimes, and when I train, like visually, it doesn't look like I'm pushing too hard. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
got that stoic expression, on my face. So I don't know if it's just a perception that, I'm not getting after it. So yeah, it's a little pet peeve. I get a little irritated. Like, come on, man. I've been training like 37 years. How do you call that soft,
Well, good. I'm glad yours is going good. Mine's going good as well. I'm doing 5 days a week, upper lower, upper lower upper. So 3 uppers, 2 lower. Um, and I've really enjoyed that split. I've done that now ever since I broke my jaw. So that's been what 7, 8 months ago, 9 months ago now. I've been doing that split. However, I will say that the heavy singles, those things for me, they're like a freaking drug. I shouldn't be doing it.
You're
Can't
hardcore.
stop.
Well, if
Those
you're
are good.
bodybuilding now, you're prepping for bodybuilding. Like, do you really know those singles, Brad?
Exactly, Jeff. Exactly the question I ask myself. It's like, okay, I set this up because it's enjoyable. I just had a heavy single and then I do bodybuilding. So it's like a heavy single, 3 back offs on that exercise. Then I just go into my bodybuilding work, which I've been really enjoying the bodybuilding work. But yeah, do I really need to be doing these singles? And I get in there and I'm like, let's work up to it. Let's see what I can do today. Let's work up to a heavy single. And they're going down a little bit, I'm very happy when, like the other day, I hit a single on a 390 squat and it was probably an RPE 8. It might have been an 8.5. I don't know if I definitely had 2 in me. And I was pretty darn happy with that, but it's a long ways from where I've been, when I was doing the powerlifting stuff. And there's been a couple days where I'll say, I'm embracing the hunger again. It's been a long time since I've been like hungry, and I'm like, so what? Just do it. Just suck it up. You're hungry. Just deal with it. That's been a long time. That's been 4, 5 years since I felt that way. Um,
Benefit.
and I just what I do a lot of times, I just that first set, leave a few in reserve. Second set, go a little bit more. Third set, as long as it's not a squat or a deadlift or a, RDL or something hard like that, I'll take the last one to a house as long as it's safe. Maybe stumble upon failure. Maybe I just kind of on that last pull down, give it a little hitch. Oh shit, and I thought I had it, but I didn't.
Mhm.
But that's feeling really good. It's just being in control, knowing, okay, well, you know what? Get the effort in there. Just get the effort in there. I'm Jeff Alberts here. Get the effort in there.
You're gonna
Don't worry
look
about the
like Roger
reps.
Federer with no expressions in your face and make it look all pretty, and then people are gonna say you're soft, Brad, like me.
Well, I mean, I got to say, Jeff, I admire you myself for being able to keep a very stoic look because I'm in pain. I'm just like, I'm grunting and sometimes I'm spitting and I can't hold it in like you do.
Well, I make sure when I train with you, I don't get too close. I'm like
That's
that
what I
six
told B
foot
too.
distance. Okay, okay. COVID taught me a lot about that space
Yeah.
distance there. So
I told B that too when B's filming. I'm like, B, you know what? This one here, you might want to go over there and don't stand right there in front of me.
So as far as like the singles though, so you're doing that on squats. Are you still
Squats,
deadlifting?
dead. Yeah. Well, I'm doing the trap bar deadlift.
Okay.
That trap bar
Are you
deadlift is a godsend.
are you benching?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So now that you're prepping for bodybuilding, and you will get on stage with Eric and I at some point, you're gonna get that lane. You're gonna go all the way. But do you ever think you're probably gonna pull those out? Think you could pull
Oh
those
yeah, I'm
singles
gonna
out?
have to. I'm gonna have to for sure. Yeah. Because I mean, if nothing else, I mean, the single on my squat's gone from 430 down to 390, right? And that's a good day. 390 was a good day. Usually it's like between 355 and 370. That's a pretty significant drop. If nothing else, I'm going to get discouraged just because, here I am lean and fragile in the 170s and then in the 160s. I'm just going to pull it because I don't want to see that number go down, But at the same time, that's the smart thing to do because how rugged and rigid and, how durable am I going to be doing those singles, when I'm that lean and that starving, I gotta go hard and get my stuff done in a smarter way. This is the bottom line.
I was gonna say, so it's like you're gonna at some point you'll eliminate the singles because it's probably a little bit more riskier because your body's gonna be a little bit more in a fragile state. Not to scare you, but I mean that's kind of the reality of it.
Exactly.
It's like,
That's the
you're
reality
not
of
as
it.
pliable. You don't have as much food coming in. You don't have the leveraging anymore. But do you see yourself maintaining the squat, the deadlift, and the bench? And the reason I say that is because what's like super trendy right now is the stimulus to fatigue ratio as far as exercise selection. It's almost like some people are taken to extreme, like I can never touch these harder exercises because they're just going to create so much fatigue. I'm not going to be able to, be optimal with my other exercises, or, the next training session is going to be hindered. Like, do you see yourself like having that come to fruition, like down the road where you're kind of like, okay, let's not squat anymore because you're just too fearful that you're going to be overly fatigued?
Yeah. See, that's a good question because I can answer that in a lot of different ways because number one, I hope not to. Because those are exercises that I really enjoy. I really enjoy squatting. I really, really do. Now, that being said, how often do I take a squat to an RPE 9? Not very. Because again, that stimulus to fatigue ratio, you take one set of squats to an RPE 9, you could be shot for the whole workout, Because, I mean, let's face it, an RPE 9 means that you went to a squat where you got stuck somewhere and slowed down in the middle of that, And so usually if I do something like that, I'll do it on a good day when I got good sleep and I'm feeling good, and sometimes I'll stumble upon that. So I'm kind of biased in that I don't want to have to take those out. You know what I mean? But I've already had to modify the deadlift, like trap bar deadlift. I went from the straight bar deadlift to the trap bar deadlift, and that was feeling good for a while, and then here recently it's kind of like, man, just getting down into that position to get that bar broke off the floor. It feels different. I don't have the same padding around my hip joint and my abdomen like I used to, that little bit of a shock absorber at the bottom there, So I've had to kind of basically do a top down deadlift. So I unrack the trap bar from the top of the rack, take a couple steps out, do my set of however many or my single or whatever, and then walk it back in when I'm done. Or if I do take it a little bit, higher effort, I'll just put it back down on the floor and then just unload it, before I put it back up there again. So I've already kind of had to modify those. But to answer your question, Jeff, I'm just going to wait and see, to be honest with you. I mean, that's a lot of times what we do as coaches anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got a plan. There's an A, B, C, right? And if A doesn't work out, I can't keep the squat, I can't keep the bench, or can't keep the deadlift, or one of those in there, then yeah, B is I'll pull the deadlift all together. I'll pull the squat all together and just kind of primarily, focus on my vulgar looking belt squats, that I do with my cable.
Right.
There's smart ways to go about that. So I'm basically just going to approach it how it comes, and if I find that, I'm fragile and the knees are bugging me and, I can't even get my vulgar belt squats in and my leg extensions after I get done doing a squat, well, I'm going to be better off just pulling the squats and
Yeah.
getting my volume in the smarter way.
Yeah, I think it's important to be proactive in a sense. Like you said, you theorize, like, okay, this makes sense on paper ahead of time, but as you go through the experiences, then super important to be reactive, and try to make adjustments that's going to, keep your progress rolling. And I can, a lot of people, they kind of just look at those, like the exercise selection thing. It's almost like, okay, well, you're pulling the squats out. It's like the king of lower body exercise. Why would you pull that out? That's one of the best exercises out there. Then you have another camp that's going to say, well, why would you keep it in? Because you're just going to end up wrecking yourself, and you can do other exercises to get, similar, if not better stimulus. And I don't think either one, there's like different perspectives to look at.
Yeah.
Because I've ran my 2014 prep, the whole prep. I squatted and deadlift like multiple times per week. So it's not that the exercises per se are terrible or hard or whatever. It's how you program it and how you execute it and how you map it out. Because, like right now, I'm not doing squats and deadlifts. Like my main patterns are leg press, RDL, hyperextensions, sissy squat. So I just make sure that I only have, like, let's say one little bit harder more demanding exercises, say, in a given session. So like one leg day is leg press with hyperextensions as my main patterns. And then the other one's RDL with sissy squats. So it's not overly demanding. And because I'm spacing my workouts pretty far apart, it's, I'm training every other day. So I'm getting plenty of recovery. So I have a good balance, with that. And I think oftentimes, like, I think we just get in these camps where it's like, okay, this person said squats and deadlifts, we shouldn't be doing that during our preps or deficit or what have you. And it's almost like taboo on these things when it's more about like taking a big step back and kind of seeing from a bigger lens, bigger perspective, and seeing pros and cons, to whatever you're doing. Because there's always pros and cons to anything.
Exactly.
You kind of just have to weigh it out.
Yeah.
So, like, people will say, like, right now, like, well, why aren't you deadlifting? Why aren't you squatting? Why aren't you doing this? Or why you're performing your benches like this with a slow eccentric? You're not being able to use as much weight. So it's where, certain people are maybe limited in their perception. They kind of look at it and go, well, just training really soft.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to be able to get as much progress because of the way you're doing things right now. But it's kind of on the contrary, because it's like, well, the reason I'm doing these things is because I can't do it the other ways. So I'm trying to find alternatives, like you mentioned. Doesn't mean I'm not working hard, though. Like, I'm still putting effort in. So that's what as a coach, so that I try to, help my athletes out with is like, okay, what's the context that we're under now, and what kind of makes the most sense? And what if someone really loves to do squats and deadlifts? Like, if you said, hey, Jeff, I want to do singles through the entirety of my prep, there's probably a way we can probably do that successfully if you mapped it out.
Yeah. I mean, I could probably figure out on my own way to do it, but it's the hard part is the psychology too, because you got to weigh. There's the psychology of, okay, this number is dropping, because you're right. If I would be okay with just letting it drop, if I would be okay with just letting it drop, I probably could run it that way, But, that's just kind of a hard thing to watch. And I know I'm not alone in that camp. I know there's a lot of guys that just, they can't stand to watch that number go down. So they just rather not do it. And who knows? I mean, I'm not there yet, but maybe I'm in that camp, and maybe I need to be that one that says, okay, well, you know what? I can't stand to watch that squat number go down. We need to get my quad and my glute volume in another way, But there's so much to weigh there, and kind of expanding on that subject, a lot of times it depends on the person's strength, if a person can squat 440 pounds for, 10 reps, 200 kilos for 10 reps. That's friggin' strong. That's heavy, and I don't care if I program to do, 200 kilos, 440 pounds for 3 reps. That's still 440 pounds. They have to load on their body that is no longer as strong, as durable, and is padded as it used to be, And a lot of times with those really strong athletes, those are kind of the ones that, unless they're okay with taking that 200, kilo squat and dropping it down to 150, you know what I mean? I got to yank some of those, because those really strong athletes, it's almost like, I don't know, it's hard to explain. It's probably not a real thing, but it's almost like they generate more fatigue because they are so strong and they can do that. You know what I mean? Especially if they're like, 180 pounds, 190 pounds. That's a strong person. That's a whole lot of load that they're
takes
putting
a lot
on
of energy and
180
effort
and
to move
190
that,
pounds.
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Whereas if you take somebody that's 180, 190 pounds, they're squatting 250, 275. They tend to hold up a little bit better, just because that's not such a huge, ratio of their body weight. You know what I mean? And so a lot of times we can kind of keep those in there for at least a little bit longer time, if not all the way through. But yeah, I remember 2000, both my 2011 and my 2014 prep, even with 2015 when you and I did the guest posing. I got really freaking lean, and I squatted and bench pressed the whole time. I eventually had to get rid of the deadlifts because those are the ones that seem to have the most, I don't know, call it systemic fatigue that build up,
Yeah.
I did have to let those go, but I squatted and benched the whole time.
Yeah, because my 2014 prep, I was benching, squatting, and deadlifting the whole way through. Deadlifting only once per week.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I was like, okay, I'm not going to try to at a certain point in the prep when I was starting to get a little on the leaner side and I didn't have the leveraging anymore. It was like, okay, from here on out, I'm just going to do roughly the same load, the same number of sets, and the same reps. I'm just going to repeat it. Because in my mind is like, okay, it took so much to get to this point. So all I have to do is just maintain it. Because I'm not going to be building muscle, the rest of this prep.
Exactly.
So if I just maintain it, it's not going to create too much fatigue because I'm just basically doing the same thing every week. So my deadlift was once a week like that. It was anywhere between 2 and 3 sets. I think the load was like 365 to 405. If I felt really good, it was more closer to 405. If I felt a little fatigued, I'm like, okay, I'll just drop to the 365. But I was roaming in that ballpark for a long while. And then as far as the squats, I was squatting twice per week, almost the majority of the way. I had one heavier session, and then I had, in a sense, a lighter session. So it was like in the neighborhood of 315 to 350, somewhere in there was my heavier days. And then the lighter days was like 2 plates, like 225 for like 3 sets of 10. And that's how I ran it. And I was able to do it successfully the entire way through. And then on the bench pressing, I was only like bench pressing once a week. So it wasn't overly invasive. So there's ways to like be more inclusive with exercise selection. As long as you're programming it and you're accounting for the fatigue it does generate, it makes sure there's enough recovery for it.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned that, because were we collaborating with our training in 2014? Because that's exactly how I ran my squat.
Well, I think at the time that was like in the power building era.
Yeah.
So there was
the power
kind of
hypertrophy
a heavy day,
adaptive
a lighter
training,
day, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So, and now it's like I still use a lot of those principles, like I mentioned earlier. I use a lot of those principles now. Like even with my upper body, like I have a day where I'm doing a little more pressing, and then the other day it's like, okay, let me do pec deck. Let me do laterals for delts. So I'm not, let's say, trashing my joints with a bunch of pressing every single session. So you can say, because over the years, I've been that guy who was like more hardcore. This is why what really confuses me is probably because when I was more hardcore, I wasn't on the internet. So people didn't really get a glimpse as to how I used to train back in the day. I know I came from the Mike Mincer, Dorian Yates camp.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like RPE 10 or 0 in the tank. It was like I'm going to 0 and beyond.
Yeah.
Like I'm literally like, okay, that last rep, I'm barely squeaking it out. And if I have a partner with me, it's like, okay, now I got another forced rep or 2 in there. And then from there, it was like, okay, now we're going to do a static hold.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like static hold as in just hold it. It was more like mentally trying to push against that weight while obviously it's coming down, but you're pushing it as hard as you could. So those sets were just like so intense. So like when people say, Jeff, you're soft, you're soft, you're soft, it's like, no. I'm smart. I've gotten wiser because of those experiences that I've gone through where I did push myself, and not just in the gym, dieting too. And Brad, you and I, we've dieted really hard in the past.
Yeah.
No refeeds, no diet breaks, nose diving into shows, getting shredded, but eating up our tissue at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we've come from that side of things where it's like we know how to grind, we know how to go there. So going through years of that wasn't just like we did one prep like that. We did multiple preps like that. And I trained like that for 16 years. So I have a lot of experience going through that. So when people say you're soft, it's like, no, I'm actually wise because now I know how to pick those spots. There's times when you have to get in there and push, even on those days of prep where it's like, okay, I'm in my 5th or 6th low day in a row. I got to train legs today. You don't feel like doing it. And the soft Jeff might say, well, okay, let's just take an extra day or 2 of rest, but maybe, you got shit lined up, with the family or something, or you have a hot date and you just can't get to the gym the next day. Or it's like, no, you got to make it happen.
You got to get it done. Yeah.
So it's like, you just have to get in there. Right. Well, the old Jeff comes into play and I can power through that because I know how to grind. But there's times when I also too, it's like, okay, maybe even though I have all this context going on, like maybe today just isn't the best day to do it. Because maybe I only had 4 hours sleep last night. Maybe I'm just like really lethargic. Like it's just hard for me to get off the couch to even go take a leak.
Yeah.
Like how am I supposed to go do a leg press or a leg curl even when I can't even go to the bathroom, So it's like, then you have to kind of like, okay, what makes the most sense here? Like if I go in there and force the training session, is it going to be a productive one? Am I going to be more at risk for aches and pains, injuries? Or, okay, I don't feel too terrible, but I'll get in there and train. But maybe it's like, okay, this is just one of those sessions where, I'm hitting 3 or 4 in the tank on all my sets, just doing enough to keep me afloat. That way I don't get too detrained. And then the next training session, whether it's, 2 days later or what have you, like, okay, I didn't do so much to where I'm like so fatigued now, it's hindering those workouts. So in my opinion, like, you have to kind of go through moments where you are grinding, maybe grinding to a fault in a sense, not where you're unsafe, but you're experiencing what it feels like to go through some pain. And then you have moments where you are conservative. Maybe it is a lot of fluff work, but you get to experience that. And then you're like, okay, you're better equipped to kind of know how to pick those spots, when to push, when to pull up, pull back, and even how to organize and program, not just your training, but training, like your programming, your dieting, your training to all kind of mesh together where it's like, okay, on these days, strategically, you're going to be able to get after it more comfortably, get good production and have good recovery. Then maybe these days over here, those are a little bit of the fluffier days because of the context that's wrapped around that. Whether it's like, more low days in a row or you're in a much leaner state or what have you. So it's learning how to pick those spots. And oftentimes too on social media, when people are kind of like probably watching like my posts and things like that, they're only kind of seeing that glimpse, like what's kind of happening in that moment. Like there might be context that was leading into that, maybe a month, 2 months, or even a week or what have you, is the reason why you're doing certain things in that moment. So you can stumble across one of my posts is like, why is this guy only doing 2 exercises? Like, that's all the volume you do? I get that all the time. Like, that's all the volume you do? It's like, well, maybe for that day because of X, Y, and Z, but you only have so much room on Instagram. Your caption can only go up to like, 400 words or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But anyways, I'm kind of ranting. And
you know what?
I'm
funny,
old.
Jeff,
I need to catch my breath here because I guess I'm soft right now. I got to stop talking.
off air when we were getting ready to get going on this thing, you were like, yeah, I don't know if I could do a one-man podcast. Boy, brother, I'll tell you what, you're doing a damn good job. I'm just enjoying listening to you here.
Well, when you hang around Eric for 13 years now, 14, you learn a thing or two about talking a little bit.
Yeah, you're doing great, brother. You're doing great. I'm just sitting here listening to you, listening to all the wise words and little golden nuggets here.
Now I just have to expand my dictionary. I need bigger words.
Yeah, get all those fancy words in there.
What's going on, 3MJers? Eric Helms here. Thanks for listening to our podcast. I just want to take a second to tell you about MASS, Monthly Applications in Strength Sport. This is a monthly research review that I put out with Greg Knuckles, Dr. Mike Zerdos, and Dr. Eric Trexler. We cover the most up-to-date, peer-reviewed research in the world of strength and physique sport that's directly relevant to your practice as a coach or athlete. We provide our reviews in written format, but also, since you enjoy our podcast, audio roundtable reviews where we discuss the research in depth. Finally, we also do video concept reviews where we cover a broader topic in video format for your learning. For fitness professionals, you can take quizzes on MASS content and earn continuing education credits in most of the biggest certifying bodies in the fitness industry. If you want to sign up and get a subscription, head over to 3dmusclejourney.com and click on the Products tab. Thank you for your time, and thank you for listening.
You kind of hit exactly where I kind of wanted to go, was that, okay, yeah, you know what, there's times, and a lot of times, especially when you're dieting, you just got to get in there and just got to get it done. It's just like when you're hungry. You know what, I'm hungry. You know what, just embrace it. Just your stomach's gonna growl, and just go with it.
Do you have any do you self-talk a little bit,
all the time
that way?
All the time, yeah.
What goes through your mind where you're just like, shit, I'm hella tired right now. I'm lethargic.
See,
I'm hungry.
Exactly. That's where I wanted to go.
How do you frame it, and what do you do to kind of get yourself somewhat motivated to get in there and have a productive workout?
Yeah, and that's exactly where I want to go. Is that we got to pull back sometimes. We got to have that ebb and flow. We got to be smart. Call it soft, call it whatever. I like to call it smart. Myself. But yeah, it's kind of like I was listening. You guys know that I'm a big NASCAR fan, a big race car fan, being an ex-race car driver. And I was listening to one guy that's got a really good podcast. He says, I wish there was times when I was in my car where I could put up a flag that everybody could see and say, hey, I'm falling back right now because my car is loose, or because my tire is going flat, or the engine's only running. I wish I could put something up so that people wouldn't sit up there and go, why is he falling back? He was doing so good.
Why is he driving so slow?
Exactly. Yeah. And it's kind of like, you almost kind of want to put a little sign in the background on your Instagram post, Jeff, that says, today my back is killing me. I'm only doing 2 sets, something like that.
Right.
But yeah, that's a great question, because this happened to me probably about a month or so ago. And I don't exactly remember, because I'm not dieting. I'm doing the prepositioning diet, but I wanted to dig. I wanted to be hungry. I wanted to kind of embrace the suck a little bit, and I went into my gym. It was a leg day. I do my leg days kind of like you. This particular day, I do a squat for my primary movement, and then I do an RDL, leg extensions, leg curls. That's kind of how I finish it out. And I got in there and I started doing my warm-up sets, and I was feeling pretty good, but the loads just felt heavy, And I worked up to 315, and I can usually pump out 315 pretty darn easy. And I did 1 rep, and I could just tell, you know what? This ain't happening today. I had 2 workouts left. I had that one. My other one was a chest workout where I do bench press, and then I do flies. I do, what's my other chest exercise? Bench press, flies. Oh, I do a kind of a dumbbell press. I got it from John Meadows. I call it a hex press. Okay. Those were my 2 workouts that were left. And I called it right there on that 315 squat. I'm like, you know what? Done. Rack the bar, strip the plates, brought it down. I did the chest day that day. And I actually had a pretty darn good workout. That day there, it was pretty darn good. But for whatever reason, it was the being hungry for a while, I don't really know, but I did not have the strength on that day. And I knew that was going to be a shitty session. It's kind of like, usually my back down sets are between 295 and 335. Uh-huh. What good is it for me today to just do 225, and just kind of, try to grind my way through it, just kind of more so going through the motions than anything, you know.
Yeah.
I called it. I flipped it. I had a pretty good, that particular day is a chest and a delt day. So like you, one day I'm doing a lot of shoulder pressing, but then on this day, I do kind of a cross body cable lateral, you know, for my delts. That was a good workout. That was a pretty darn good workout. And then the next day I took off because luckily I try to get my microcycle done between Monday and Sunday. Well, that day was a Friday, so I took Saturday off. And then I went in there on Sunday, you know, on the Lord's Day, on the Sabbath day, and I got my squat workout in that day because I remember I got a good night's sleep. I found out that I've got to be hydrated going into these sessions. If I'm even the slightest bit dehydrated, I can feel it. My strength just tanks, you know? And so that was how I dealt with that day. I flipped it, took a day off. The next day, the strength was somewhat back again on that squat day, you know? But yeah, I mean, you got to be smart, you know, and some days I do cut my sets. Everything I have programmed is in that 10 to 20 set range. My lats are like 16, 17, 18 sets because that's kind of a body part that I need to work on. But quads, hamstrings, they're more like 13 sets for the week. Is it really going to hurt me for 1 week to drop from 13 sets down to 11? You know,
well,
and like you did, do 2 sets instead of 3 or 4.
So I was going to ask you. So I mean, I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask you, just like for those people out there that like in that moment, like you just don't feel it, right? Like you said, it's like the leg stuff, you just weren't feeling it. Let me just do something else that's a little bit easier. But let's say you decided to let's say you did the leg workout anyways, and you cut the volume in half because you just weren't feeling it. Like what's the worst that's going to happen by doing that? Because there's a lot of insecurity around if I don't maintain the same amount of volume that you normally do, or you're not elevating it. Like what's the downside if you chose to downsize? What's the downside to that?
Yeah. And really, I mean, there's nothing, you know. I've run umpteen weeks now of doing 13 sets of quads, you know. If I cut 3 of my sets and I do 9 this week, I don't have the slightest hesitation to do that. It's 1 week out of all these that I've done since July, since I broke my jaw. You know what I mean? It's a speed bump. There's no and I'm probably going to be good next week. I'll probably be able to get those 13 sets in next week.
There's no atrophy. That's not like you're an atrophy because you're still training with some effort.
Yeah. Yeah,
so at the
exactly.
very least, you're maintaining muscle. You're probably maintaining the performance aspect of it. Even though it's an off session, you're still trained. So you're not going to get detrained. So when you do come back into the next session, when you're more rested and your body's more ready to go, you're probably going to like perform the same, if not better, because you didn't try to force something that your body just wasn't wanting to be forced upon.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to always equate it to marathon runners. You know, if a marathon runner is getting ready for a marathon and they miss 1 day of training, are they going to be fat and out of shape because of that? No. They're probably still going to be able to get ready for that marathon. And they're still going to probably run just as good as they had planned to, you know. But yeah, those are the kind of things that we have to weigh, you know. And on that particular day, to be honest with you, I didn't even want to do 1 set the way that I was feeling, you know. I just didn't want to even try to just go with lighter loads, more reps in reserve. I just didn't even want to do 1 or 2 sets like that. And then that's why I just bailed on it. Yeah. And there's been times when I'll get in there and I'll be just like, you know what? I am not feeling this today. I am not, you know, I'm not even enjoying this. Because there's been times when I've had clients that they don't even want to train anymore. They're so overtrained and burned out, they don't even want to train. They're done with it, you know. That's a sign of overtraining right there. If you don't even want to train, that's a sign. You know what I mean? And there's been days when I go in there and I'm like, you know what? I can tell I don't want to be in here today. You know what? But it's 1 day. It's 1 day. Let's just let it go, you know? Or, you know, maybe I'll just, I don't know, do something simple just to kind of whet my appetite, maybe keep that love there, you know, somewhat. But a lot of times that day, it's the next day when I'm like, ooh, man, I am itching to get in there.
Yesterday, usually I train around 3, 4 in the afternoon, somewhere in there. I usually have lunch around 12:30, and I usually have a bigger sized lunch to kind of feel that. Well, I had a longer work day. Like my day stretched way out. Like I didn't get off work till about 5. And I'm like, and I didn't eat because I was like, I had lunch, but I didn't eat anything after that because like I'm trying to get my work done. I didn't want to stop, eat.
I've
I'm
had
like,
days
okay,
like
I got to
that.
get through this. I got to get this work done. And then it was time to train, but I was like hungry. I'm like, because I'm dieting, I'm in prep. I'm hungry. I'm like, well, if I eat anything now, then I'm gonna have to let it digest. And then now I'm gonna be training at 6, and it's gonna push my day back so long. And I know there's a certain point for me. Like if I get past, let's say 6 o'clock in the evening, I can't do anything physical like that. I'm done. So I'm like, okay, I have to do it now. Okay. So I just drank like a half a cup of coffee just to kind of give me a little perk. And I went in the gym to train, and mentally I wasn't feeling it because it was a long work day. I was a little bit stressed. I didn't have time to de-stress because as soon as I came down from work, I went straight downstairs, and of course, my son and my wife, they're like, and I'm like, I need a minute to de-stress here, so I didn't feel like training. But then in my mind, I'm like, okay, because it went through my mind, like, okay, let me just not train today. I'll train tomorrow instead. But like, no, my son's got double karate the next day. I'm like, okay, so I'm not going to have a window there. Plus I have to record this podcast. I have a Skype to do prior to this. Like, there's just no way I'm going to train the next day. So I'm like, I have to make it happen now. So I just said, okay, I tried mentally while I was drinking that coffee, I'm framing it like, let's just see what that first set feels like. I didn't think about the entire session, what I had to do. I didn't think of like, okay, I got to do 3 sets of RDL. I got to do 4 sets of sissy squats or 3 sets of calves or whatever. I'm like, okay, let me just think about that one set on RDL, that first one, which was going to be a heavy one because my ego's been going on RDL lately. I've been wanting to get back to 4 plates. So Jeff, for those of you who say I'm soft, I'm still going for that 4 plate RDL, getting back to that. And so I had in my mind, I'm going to do that. And I knew too, like, okay, this is probably not the best day to try to increase my load on RDL, but sometimes I get a little ego. I'm not perfect. I'm like, okay, I'm going to get after it, even though I feel like I'm not going to probably do all that great, but we're going to test it. Just the one set. And yeah, I mean, I got warmed up and I nailed 395 for 5, which was a 10-pound jump from the prior session. And right after that, it was heavy too. Like I was like, oh my God, this is heavy. But I grinded through it. I racked it. My wife was in there working out with me. I turned and looked at her, I go, I'm too old for this shit. That was my exact words. Because it zapped me. But at the same time, it was a great feeling like, okay, if I didn't push myself and nudge myself and get after it, and just in a sense, like just framing it as just take one set and just see how it goes. Because after that one set, I know, okay, how the rest of the work is gonna go. I did my back off sets; those went fine. Sissy squats went fine. Calves starting to get a little bit labored because I was getting really hungry at that point. But I'm like, it's just calves. Yeah, I'll finish that out, and I was fine. I got in the house, I had dinner, I was fine. But if I didn't like frame it in that way, and I kind of just was a little too soft, a little too conservative, then I probably would have been like, okay, I'm skipping the workout altogether. And then I probably wouldn't even trained until Wednesday, maybe even Thursday. So it would have pushed everything back. It would have made the rest of the week a little bit harder to navigate. So sometimes like in the moment, you have to kind of get after it if it's safe to do so. Now if it was 6 o'clock, I probably would have scratched that workout. I probably just said, I'm going to wait. If I can get it in Wednesday somewhere or Tuesday somewhere, I'll get it. But yeah, in my opinion, those in the moment decisions is what makes more advanced bodybuilding in my eyes. Oftentimes we look at like, okay, what program is someone running or, those types of things. It's like, it's not so much. It's how you navigate, your landscape in a sense. And so, I can take myself back, and I've shared the story plenty of times, but I'll share it again because it's always a good one. And it kind of goes with what we're talking about. When I tore my calf in 2013, the ego got the best of me because when I would I think it was dehydration too, because I've been taking what you've been doing to heart, like having a glass of water, or staying hydrated before my training sessions. So that day I was definitely a little on the dehydrated side. And I remember getting into my squats and it felt horrible. I'm like, this does not feel good at all. And I'm like, okay, I didn't push my lows, but I just told myself, keep going. Don't be a sissy or whatever. Just keep going. So I got to leg curls. Those fell off, kept going. And then by the time I got to calves, that first set, my ego was like, okay, I gotta try to increase from where I was before. And I was in the neighborhood of like mid 500s on the Smith machine, which is silly to think about now, but it's ridiculous for a small muscle group. But yeah, I was getting pretty damn strong on it. I know Erica podcast that just got some strong calves. Well, progressive overload works, right? Even for calves. But anyways, that first set just felt horrible. I'm like, this feels like a ton of bricks. So I dropped the load down by 50 pounds or whatever it was. On the second set, on like fourth or fifth rep, my calf tore. It just gave out. So it was a hard lesson learned. Like, okay, sometimes, those people say you're being soft. You need to be more hardcore and get after it. Well, that's kind of like the negative side. If you take it a little too far with that, it probably would have been better if I would have just said, you know what, after squats, like probably a good idea. Maybe I deload the rest of the session, or, hey, I'm not feeling it the first set of these squats. Let's just go in the house and do this tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because what ended up happening is I lost time. I lost it took 9-10 weeks to heal.
Yeah.
And then it took another 4 or 5 months after that just to get my lower body training back up to normal. So I missed, a lot of productivity during that time. I mean, it taught me a lot. Obviously, I can share stories like this and it's beneficial, but if I could go back in hindsight, I'd rather not have my calf tear like that. That hurt quite a bit. But yeah, so if those experiences have kind of helped me to know when to push and when to back off.
Sounds like you have conversations with yourself, like I do in the gym quite a bit, because I've been having more conversations with myself here over the last
just
2-3 months.
envisioning ourselves like talking to ourselves out loud. All right, Jeff, you're really hungry. You haven't had dinner yet. It's approaching 6 o'clock here. So what do we do here?
Yeah. I all the time. I'm up in here. I'm thinking. It's kind of like I'm talking to myself. Okay, I look at my chalkboard there because I've got my list of stuff that I need to do there. I'm like, okay, all right. So should we just jump right into this? And then a lot of times I'll be like, okay, let's just do one set. Let's just do a quick warm up set. Kind of see how that feels. Usually that one never feels good. So I try not to put too much weight in that, and then it's like, okay, you know what? That felt awful. Let's just bail. No. Yeah, your first one always feels awesome. Going back, first one always feels awesome. Let's just do one more. Let's just do another one, and yeah, I just kind of go back and forth. It sounds like you kind of have little conversations like that with yourself.
Through the whole training session yesterday, I was like, okay, that 395 felt hella heavy. I'm like, you know what? Okay, I'm going to back down. And I maintain the same load as I did the prior session with the back off sets. And in my mind, I'm like, I'm still going to try to either hit the same number of reps or I'm going to try to get one more. Because that's how simple I keep training.
Yeah.
I look, okay, what did I do last time? Can I beat it? Let's see if I can do it on the first set. If I can, cool, right? I'm progressing. If not, well, okay, let me be soft Jeff here and just take what my body's going to give me in this moment. And even if I'm not beating numbers, or even if I'm falling short a little bit, as long as the effort is appropriate, like proximity to failure, I know I'm going to get a stimulus. So I don't trip on not always doing more. But I was conversing with myself in my head. Okay, that was a hard set. Let me give myself a little more rest time because I am hungry. I'm a little bit low on energy. So how can I get more energy without eating? Okay, let me rest a little longer. So that way I can keep my composure, get rested, keep my composure. And then every set, I'm mentally there. I'm not fighting off extra fatigue because I'm trying to go, because a lot of people do that, right? I'm hungry, I'm tired, I'm going to rush through this.
Yeah.
And that can backfire. That gets you in some hot water. So I'm like, let me just slow my thinking down, rest a little longer in between sets. It takes me a little longer to complete the workout, fine, as long as I'm maintaining a high degree of quality. And food is on its way when I'm done. It's on the way.
Yeah.
So I do have these self-talks all the time.
And I'll tell you, there's some times when not only am I doing self-talks, but I'm hearing Jeff in some of those harder
That's
sessions
what my athletes tell me. They always go, what would Jeff do? In the moment.
I don't even have to ask what Jeff does. I know what Jeff's going to say and I hear Jeff's voice, and it's like, you know what? Just get some good reps in. Just get on it. Just get some good reps in there. You ain't going to beat last week. Don't worry about it. Just get some good quality reps in there, you know? And like, for example, tonight's going to be that way because we're in the middle of a blizzard right now. I had to clear driveways yesterday. I had to clear driveways today. I'm behind schedule. I haven't got any of my training sessions done, and it's Tuesday, you know? And had to hurry up, get the wet clothes on, get on this podcast. I never train in the evening. Never train in the evening. I've tried several times. If I look outside and it's dark out, I don't even try.
Your eyes closed.
I don't even try to
immediately. Your eyes closed.
I don't even try to train, you know. But tonight it may have to happen, you know. And that's going to be. I'm going to hear Jeff. I'm going to be like, you know what? Just get some good quality reps in there. Just one at a time, one rep. You know what? That was a good one. Do another one. That was a good one. Do it the same way. You know, just I'm going to be stoic Jeff in there, just doing my repetitions. You know what? 8. Okay, so I got 10 with that load last week. It's 8 this week. At least it was good quality, you know, form. It was good quality rep. Done with that one. We go to the next one, you know. And I have to do that. Since I started dieting now, I had to do that probably, if not once a week, you know, a couple times a month. I'm not going to beat my numbers. I just got to get in there and I got to get some good quality work in, you know. And only the big movements do I feel, because if the one I'm going to do tonight, I'm going to do my back. It's going to be rows. It's going to be pull downs. It's going to be my straight arm push downs, you know, and I think I have one incline chest exercise that I do on that one. So it's it's not super invasive. You know what I mean? If it was a squat workout, you know, or that deadlift workout or my bench workout, I would be like, you know what? Don't even do that one. Flip. Do another one. If it was day 2, I would probably do that day 5 in its place because I got to get it done. I've got to get it done tonight or I'm going to be so far behind and there's more snow coming and I'm not going to get my training done. So it's going to be, Jeff's going to be talking to me. He's going to be, yeah, that was a good rep. Do another one. You know what? That was a good rep. Do another one, you know?
So that's not being soft or being conservative. Like you said, it's being smart. That's being intelligent with your training because, you know, obviously if you try to force something we probably shouldn't, it's probably not going to go all that well.
Yeah.
But even switching gears, like away from training, like on Saturday, the family and I, we went to San Francisco. It's my 6th low day in a row. And I'm like, okay, how am I going to navigate nutrition and all this, right? Because it's like, we're going to be gone all day. We're in the city. Am I going to be that hardcore bodybuilder, right? And go into a restaurant with Tupperware or not eat anything, or, you know, I'll let them go in the restaurant and I'll just go walk around so I don't have to watch them eat. So, you know, I've been that hardcore bodybuilder. It's like, I'm not even going to go watch these people eat, man. I must just have my boiled chicken and my brown rice and my broccoli. So I was like, how am I going to navigate this? So I was like, okay, I brought some food with me, but when we were out and about, we ended up going to this Italian place and walk in the door and there's this guy eating pizza and it's like deep dish Chicago style. And this thing's like super thick. I'm like, that's like 1,000 carbs in one piece. Like, look at that thing, man. I was like, that looks hella good. And I'm like, but I can't do that. So I'm like, okay, what am I going to eat? And the menu was not, let's say, prep friendly.
Dieter friendly, yeah.
No, not at all. I'm like, and I don't want to just order lettuce here. I'm like, okay, so I'm thinking in my head, okay, I'm strategizing in my head, but not saying this to my wife or anybody there. I'm like, okay, what am I going to order here? And how am I going to like navigate the rest of the day? So I can fit in like, okay, I'm going to eat some decent food that tastes good. No one's going to mention what I'm eating. It's just like, okay, I'm just being a normal person here. So I ordered 2 cheese slices and I got the thin crust. So I saw like a little section in the middle, like a thin crust. And I saw someone like a couple tables over and it was like super thin. I'm like, okay, there's not that many calories there. So I ended up doing that. But the rest of the day, I kind of just modified my menu so I can hit the target at the end. The macros were a little screwy at the end of the day, but the calories were about right. Old Jeff would have been hardcore and not done that. And, you know, I think too conservative Jeff would be like, well, I'm out here with my family, you know, what's one meal? I'm going to go ahead and eat this deep dish pizza and just do it because I'm out and about. Like, you probably get those people that say that stuff all the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I think it's like what I try to do is like, okay, I'm trying to balance both at the same time. Where it's like, okay, I'm still following the bodybuilding side of things, but at the same time, I'm trying to have that balance with the family and all that. So those are the things that go through my mind in the moment. Like I'm gradually like processing, like kind of like Terminator, right? Like you kind of look like, Terminator scouring out, like, okay, how many officers are here? Do I shoot him in the knee? Do I do this?
Going in front
Like
of
all
it.
this is
Yeah.
kind of going through my head, and it's like years of experience, right? That's kind of processing. So I'm trying to make the best decisions in the moment. That's gonna, keep me going. And sometimes it's like you do make mistakes. And, I've had those days where I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I'm gonna eat this deep dish pizza. I don't give a shit.
Mm-hmm.
But then, it's obviously a mistake. And then like 3 days later, you're like, oh, why did I do that? But then it's like, okay, let me just learn from it. Let me try to improve from that.
Mm-hmm.
But without going through experiences like that, it's hard for me to process and make accurate decisions as I move forward.
Yeah. And like I told you guys earlier, it's like I'm embracing this hunger right now, and I went a couple days probably further than I should have. Just like, you know what? I'm feeling hungry and it's working. I can feel it. When you're hungry, you can feel when it's working, and when you're dropping weight and when you're dropping fat, you literally can feel it. And it's like, I'm digging this. I think I didn't plan to run one more day, but I did, and even that second day, I was like, just deal with it, and just get through your day. But today, like I told you guys, 12 o'clock, I already had 14,000 steps in. And it wasn't like I was just walking. There was some shoveling snow involved. I'm squeezing the handles on the snowblower. I would have liked to have had another low day today, because I've been just on a hot streak, with these low days and this embracing this hunger. I've been tracking my macros. It's been in the teens, 1,600, 1,750 calories. And I've just been, let's just go with it, I got in this house and it was like 5 minutes before we were supposed to be on this call. And I'm like, you know what? 13,000 some steps. I've cleared 2 driveways. I got to get my training in tonight. You know what? I'm eating. I'll say you better eat. Day, I've got to eat,
Yeah.
And I mean, I know what the calories are. The wife made some pancakes this morning, popped 2 of those suckers in the microwave. I mixed up some, call it sludge, call it paste, but I took PB Fit and made my own high protein peanut butter out of it. And that's what I was eating. When we first got on this call, I dolloped some of that PB Fit on each little bite of that pancake. I've got to eat today. Today's going to be a 2,200, 2,400 calorie day. Because there's no way I am going to be able to go into that gym and get good quality training in. And like you said, Jeff, I could end up hurting myself, for all I know.
Yeah.
Strain my forearm doing my rows, or something, today was a day that I would have liked to have gone one more low day and embraced that hunger, one more time. But with all the activity that I've been doing, I mean, I was soaked. I was sweating like a whore in church, if I could use that term. When I got
to cut that
in this house, I was soaked. I lost a lot of water. Doing all that snow shoveling and that snow blowing. And so it's like, you know what, today I got to eat, I'm not going to get through this day, safely, or much better having a very productive day, if I don't take care of Brad's nutrition.
Pre 3D muscle journey, Brad would have been, I'm going to grind.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
going to grind too. Because I want to get shredded. I want shredded glutes.
Mm-hmm.
And I have some of my athletes, they're so fixated on shredded glutes. Like they think that's just all what bodybuilding is. Like I gotta have
it's a
shredded
glutes contest. Yeah.
And I don't want refeeds. I don't want diet breaks. I just want to grind. I want to get shredded glutes because I don't want to get on stage and not have them.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's more to bodybuilding besides shredded glutes. Like you have to have muscle to go with it.
Exactly.
15,000 steps by 12 o'clock, that's probably going to end up being closer to 20 by the time the day is over with.
Mm-hmm.
And some hard training on top of that. And if you're on like how many low days in a row you're trying to, run on.
This would have been the 6th day. Yeah.
You might even be susceptible to tissue loss.
Well, or being sick, I was cold and wet.
Immune system getting run down, you getting worn down. Yeah. I mean, so it's like, Is having one more low day under that environment going to improve you that much?
Yeah,
No,
and
it's going to be counterproductive likely.
for sure. Yeah. And here's a Brad story. You know, I was telling my son this because my son was having trouble figuring out why he couldn't just sustain his same levels of strength all the time. He's a football player. He's a big, strong kid, and he's gotten stronger and he's gotten bigger, you know, this winter. And I had to tell him this story. I remember vividly, like it was yesterday. Oh yeah, this was like this was like my 2003 prep, I want to say. I had this cardio regimen that I was doing. I would be on the elliptical and I would rev it up to a certain number of strides per minute. And I would just kind of sustain it for as long as possible. And I would do this kind of like interval stuff. Well, had that on the docket for the day, but we had this beautiful snowstorm that lasted like 2 or 3 days. And it was a beautiful sunny day. And my brother-in-law and we had to get the snowmobiles out and we had to go get some throttle therapy in. And so we got up at 5, started out when it was dark. We got on the hill right when the sun was coming up. And we rode hard for like, I think we rode hard until about 2:00 in the afternoon. And I mean, when you go snowmobiling, it's not just riding, you know, you're doing hill climbing, you're getting stuck. You've got to heave that thing out of there. You got to, you know, you got to get it out of the trenches. You're lifting that thing and you're yanking on the skis. You're doing as much unstucking yourself as you are riding, you know? And so on the way home, I told my brother-in-law, and I'm like, okay, you know what? Just drop me off at the gym. Because the gym is just right down from my house. Just drop me off at the gym. I'm going to get my cardio done and I'm just going to walk home. You know, and hardcore Brad was eating his menu. I brought my menu with me. You know, I had my meal replacement shake, you know, the little envelopes that we used to have. I had my apple. I had all my stuff that I had in my Tupperware, and I ate it just like I was supposed to. And I got on that elliptical, and I mean, I was pushing as hard as I freaking could, and I couldn't get it up to the strides per minute that I usually do. I just couldn't do it. It was almost like I was riding in the wind. You know what I mean? I was literally pushing as hard as I could, and I could not keep up the strides per minute. And as it turned out, because I always had a little checklist that I would do. Okay, you know what? We beat last time's, because it was only like 16 minutes. We beat last time's record of 1.2 miles. This time it was 1.21, you know? And every now and then it would get harder and harder and harder to break that record. And I remember on that particular day, I don't even think I even eclipsed a mile, you know? And it was because of all the fatigue and everything that happened through all that snowmobiling and that work that we were doing in that day. If the Brad from today would have been that then, I would have said, okay, you know what? We're done snowmobiling. I'm going to go eat. I'm going to go hydrate. And then I'm going to go down and I'm going to do that cardio, you know, because I remember that vividly. And I'm like, I told my son that the other day. I'm like, it was probably 2003 is when that happened. So we're talking 20 years ago, you know, and it was almost, I can remember it like it was yesterday. I can remember the surroundings, the feeling, just my legs just being dead as I was just trying to push on, and they just wouldn't go.
Yeah. I got one more story where it says, so people know that I'm not soft. I want to make sure I'm enforcing that here. So 2014, absolutely. Like the further I get removed from 2014, I have a deeper appreciation for it because like that was my best year. I might end up being like the Al Bundy guy. Like I scored 4 touchdowns, you know, before halftime and all that stuff. But I remember it was like a couple weeks before Worlds. And I don't know why I was doing this, but I was installing my dining room floor.
I remember that.
It's the 6th low day in a row. And I'm like so lethargic, just like getting on my hands and knees. Like, and I was doing that all day, putting that floor in and, you know, sawing and cutting and putting these boards together. Like I was exerting so much energy, but in my mind, I'm like, I'm going to push through this because this is going to help me get leaner. Like I had in my mind, like I got to get shredded. I probably like the shredded glute thing. Like I got to get these shredded glutes. But I pushed through that. Like I didn't want to, but I was just physically taxed, like so lethargic. And that floor, like if I know like off season, it'll probably take me about 3 hours to install. It took me probably like 9-10 hours to do that floor. It took so long. But I got done. The floor looked great. And visibly from the morning to the night, I was leaner. Like you can see it because I was already hella lean at that point, but I got even leaner. So sometimes you do have to get in there and just grind. It's not going to feel pleasant, but if you want to take your physique to another level, and this sport is extreme, we're talking like, competitive bodybuilding, to get to extreme conditioning, sometimes it does take extreme measures. And you have to find the perseverance to kind of fight through it. I could have easily just said, well, I'll just sit on the couch and watch TV all day. I'm tired. It's my 6th low day. I'll just watch TV. I probably wouldn't have got a little bit leaner if I would have did that. So sometimes you have to push yourself too. Of course, the next day was a refeed. So I, replenished, sat on the couch, watched TV, and I got the recovery I needed to carry on from there. But yeah, it's I guess what we're talking about, like there's a balance, and there's, I guess in a sense, kind of like there's strategy, when to push, when to pull, but there's also a little bit of an art to it as well.
Yeah, and actually that was a great story, Jeff, because one of the things I was just about to ask you was, when do you, what's the signs that it's a good day to dig? What's the signs that it's a good day to be a little bit hungry? And like I mentioned earlier, a lot of times those upper body workouts that I have, there's 3 of them, 2 of them, they're not bad. Even on a crappy day, I can usually get some good work in there. As long as I got to train in the morning. I got to train between like 9 and 1. You know what I mean? And it's kind of one of those things where this is a good day to dig. This is a day where, you know what? We're going to have some protein in the morning with the coffee. We're going to hydrate up. We're going to get in the gym. We're going to get it done about 9, 10 o'clock. And then we're going to have a little food afterward. You're going to sit down. You're going to do your call. And then after that, you're just going to walk away from each and every meal. At that point, there's only 2 of them left anyway. You're going to walk away from each meal just basically a little hungry. You're just going to get the food that you need, and you're just going to leave it there. You're just going to, and maybe even you'll just be a little bit more hungry, and maybe you'll just have a little protein paste, because I hate drinking water at night because it never fails. I got to get up in the middle of the night and go pee. It never fails, and I hate interrupting my sleep. So it's like, you know what? Tonight's going to be a night where I just make a little paste, fill in that protein powder into a little paste, and we'll just finish it off with that, and that's it. You're going to just go to bed hungry that night, Those are the kind of the good days where it's like, okay, this is going to be a good day to just kind of be hungry,
Yeah.
And if it's the next day's a day off, I say that I finished my last workout that 5th day, same thing. I'll just run another day like that. Just be a little bit hungry. When do you kind of feel like that's a good day to dig? Today's a good day to be hungry.
I think when you're feeling good, like common sense, like I feel good, energetic. Okay, I can probably push a little harder today. Other days where I'm like maybe a little fatigued, it's like, okay, I'm trying to find good terminology. So is it, let's say there's a little discomfort, or is it's a risk? Like where you're feeling like it's risky to do, like you kind of know, you're kind of weighing things out. You're like, okay, is it a risk? Is it too much of a risk? If that's the case, like pull back.
Yeah.
But if I'm just feeling a little discomfort, okay, my stomach's, I got a little hunger there. Like I'm not going to be, I can't think of any good words, but I'm not going to be a weenie about it and be like, oh, poor me. I need to go eat a couple 100 calories to take this feeling away. Like I kind of frame it like you were mentioning it earlier. Like if I'm a little hungry, shit's probably working. If I'm in a deficit, then okay, right now my body's asking for food. It's telling me, hey, you're a little hungry. Feed me. No, I'm not going to feed you. I want you to take from the body fat. So it's working, right? So I frame it that way. But if it's like, it seems a little risky, or it's just a little over the top, then it's like, okay, let me take myself out of this, and let's just take the edge away, and then we'll kind of revisit this when I'm feeling good again to push a little harder.
Yeah.
But but how do you, I guess this is like, people are listening, it's like, we can tell you till I'm blue in the face, like, this is when you should make these judgment calls, but until you've actually experienced kind of like both sides of the spectrum and the in-betweens, it's really hard to tell you like, hey, this is when you should be doing things.
This is the criteria.
You have to
that,
kind of
yeah.
go through all these experiences, but you should just embrace the fact that whether you're successful or not in the moment, it's like tuck that away in the notes, right? Like tuck it away. So like I said, you're like me now. You're kind of like the Terminator, trying filtering like all this data in a split millisecond, trying to make the decisions in the moment.
Yeah. 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 And I remember one time, ironically, out snowmobiling. You can tell it's a blizzard here because I keep telling snow stories. I remember we were taking our snowmobiles off this big drop off. It was like this huge drop off, and I'm looking at my brother-in-law and I'm going, this feels risky. This is kind of making my stomach feel funny. He's like, yeah, that's what makes it feel great. He took off. It's probably not a real good idea in our prep. That Jeff in 2014, if he had the knowledge and the wisdom that he did today, he'd have been like, yeah, you know what? This is the kind of making me feel a little bit funny. This feels risky getting underneath this today. And then unfortunately that Jeff said, nah, it feels that's what makes it feel right.
that prep I can say is probably the best navigation that I've ever done in my bodybuilding career of like knowing when to make the right decisions. Because I had a lot to navigate outside of just bodybuilding. Like that was the first time prepping with the family. So this is like a whole nother experience, but I did a really good job of navigating things. And it's the reason why, like when I won the Pro International, I just cried like a baby because it was like, it's weird. It's a hard feeling, but it was like, it seemed like just 28 years just all culminated in that second. Like right when I walked off stage, it just hit me like all those emotions. So it wasn't just like, hey, I won first place. It was just everything that I've gone through just culminated in that second. It's kind of a cool feeling, but I don't have anything else to share other than that. Like, I just want everybody to know that I'm not just soft, man. I'm pretty hardcore when I need to be. Like, look, I got a bald head. I shaved my head. I got the hardcore,
Yeah. Sometimes you got to go there, and sometimes it's smart not to. So yeah, hopefully this has been helpful. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for the stories and the nuggets, and can't wait till we do it again.
For sure.